Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from closed session. I'd like to ask our city attorney to report on closed session.
Council met in closed session, direction was given, no reportable action was taken.
All right, this brings us to adjournment. The joint special meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority held this 23rd day of June 2026 is adjourned, but don't fret. We're going to start another meeting right now, so you're not too late. And here we are. Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor, all council members are present.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the June 9th, 2026 meeting and the agenda of the June 23rd, 2026 meeting in accordance with state law, City Council Housing Authority successor agency to the redevelopment agency policy. Before we continue the meeting, I was informed that part of the upgrades in the chamber include new microphones. I've been told that for optimal sound, we should keep a distance of 3 to 6 inches from the microphone, and please keep that in mind. And you know what? It sounds a lot better than it used to, so well done. All right, now continuing with this meeting, CYE received a proclamation for Miss El Cajon, and today they are here to introduce the new Miss El Cajon, Mr. Daymars. Will you come up and share this with us? Good, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Wells and City Council members. My name is Julie Goebel-Crawley, and Steve, you and I talked the last time I was here. My parents, Ronald Goebel and Fran Goebel, we thought we were related, but we weren't. That was the last time. But thank you for inviting us to your City Council meeting today. I just want to say a quick few words, if that's okay. As you know, our Goodwill ambassadors, Miss El Cajon Teen and Preteen El Cajon, and members of the court proudly represent the city of El Cajon by dedicating their time to community service. This past year alone, our title holders volunteered more than 500 hours, demonstrating their commitment to making a positive impact. We're excited to announce that the historic Miss El Cajon program is stronger than ever. The 63rd Miss El Cajon pageant was held on Sunday, June 14th, 2026 at Granite Hills High School. The Miss El Cajon Scholarship Program continues to uphold a tradition of excellence by offering life skills and self-improvement workshops, all while supporting participants in their academic and professional aspirations and scholarships. We strive to empower these young women by helping them recognize their potential, build self-esteem, and overcome challenges. Our program has thrived over the years thanks to the overwhelming support of you, Mr. Mayor, the community, and the City Council. Your continued generosity makes a significant difference in sustaining this program and ensuring success. On behalf of our participants and the organization, I extend my deepest gratitude for your past and ongoing support. Thank you so much for all you do for our ladies. And I'd like for them to each introduce themselves.
Oh, I
now.
love that, yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Sanchez-Flores, and I'm very honored to be this year's Miss El Cajon 2026-2027. And I've been with CYE for a few years now, and I'm very proud to say that it is genuinely one of the most empowering and inspiring organizations that I've ever been a part of. I've seen all of these girls grow so much, and I'm very excited to be helping out in the community and just being around in general. Thank you.
Congratulations on, when were you crowned?
I was crowned about 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations, it's wonderful.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Board Council members. I'm Betsy Bonnie-Baum, your 2026 Teen Miss El Cajon. Thank you.
Oh, congrats.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Amelia Nadeau. I am preteen Miss El Cajon 2025 and 2026, and your current Miss California preteen 2026.
So just a little bit about Amelia. She was actually our preteen Miss El Cajon last year and competed in the Miss California pageant and won the Miss California pageant for the preteen. So we're very
Oh,
excited that she is
congratulations.
representing El Cajon. So
That's fantastic.
yes.
Oh, yeah, we can all go, why don't we all come down and take pictures?
Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah, come on back. We'll see you out there in the,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. Love that. All right. Back to work here. Agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend that we remove from the agenda item number 12 and postpone it perhaps for another meeting.
Remove 12 and what else?
And that's,
That's it, right? Yeah, we'll vote on it here in just a second. Council, do you have any agenda changes? All right, then I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change to the agenda that Mr. Mitchell brought up.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, and then make a motion to approve the rest of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, that brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion, according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the city council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? How about staff?
no, sir.
Angela, do you have any speaker cards for consent items?
There are no cards, sir.
All right. Then I'll make a motion to approve the consent items. Please vote by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority Successor Agency, to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. Please note that state law prohibits discussion or action by the City Council on items not on the agenda. These are items that you might bring up during public comment. Therefore, this is not a time that the City Council will be answering questions about issues you raise. However, we are taking note of the matter that you bring to our attention, and we refer them to our city manager for follow-up as needed. And of course, an item may be placed on a future agenda. There we go. There are no written communications on today's agenda. And now we're at public hearings. We have 2 public hearings on today's agenda.
Mayor, we do have some speaker cards for public comment.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Thank you.
We have 6 speakers.
Yeah, please.
And we now have a formal timekeeper, and there's a very faint chime, but there is a bell that will happen after the 3 minutes. So the first speaker is Brenda Hammond.
Oh, that has to change my public comment. Okay, but I'm going to read it anyway. Okay. Well, I don't have a El Cajon Fire Department shirt yet, which I do now. But I do have a Hyundai shirt I purchased at El Cajon Hyundai. And you have to know they have a great service department at El Cajon Hyundai. They're not paying me for that. Believe me, I have to pay for my service. Oh, and the concerts, yay, Journeyman, oh yeah, 2 days in a row. Santee and El Cajon, kind of like buying a car in one and having it serviced in another, right? Oh, and the car shows, I can say I am a traffic calmer in every city, dancing in the streets. And, oh, so go USA and Mexico. And these are for Graham Mitchell, city manager, and the mayor. You can share them like pretend like it's the microphone that you were sharing for a while.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
I'll make sure everybody gets the time.
Thanks for the t-shirt. I love this.
Yes, sure.
Rich Ryle.
Hello, sir, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Rich Ryle, and I'm here to voice my concerns on the public record regarding the PBID and the proposed conversion to a community benefit district. On June 9th, at the redevelopment agency meeting, I informed the city that Marco Lamandri, Chris Berg, and city manager Graham Mitchell issued the request for proposals that resulted in the current PBID management contract. I also stated that after extensive review, no hard copy records have been found showing that the downtown El Cajon business partners or the city council ever approved the issuance of the RFP at that meeting, at a public meeting. There is no agenda, no minutes, and no votes demonstrating that the RFP was authorized in a manner required for public transparency. It's not an allegation, it's simply the condition of the public record as it exists today. Now, with the PBID seeking to convert into a community benefit district, this city is being asked to rely on a process whose origins remain undocumented and unexplained. Because of this, I'm making a formal request that Mayor Wells recuse himself from any discussion, deliberation, or vote on the PBID or the proposed CBD conversion. My reasoning is straightforward. Mayor Wells previously served on the PBID board. During that time, he was familiar with the long-standing practice of awarding no bid or single bid contracts to individuals with political or personal connections. Whether or not he participated in these decisions is not the issue. The issue is the appearance of conflict. When a sitting mayor has prior involvement with an organization whose contracting practices are now under scrutiny, and when the foundational RFP for the current PBID lacks documented public authorization, the public cannot have confidence in the impartiality of the process. The PBID conversion to a CBD is a major structural change that will affect property owners, businesses, and future governance of downtown El Cajon. It must be handled with complete transparency and without any preconception that the past relations or prior involvement could influence the outcome. For these reasons, I respectfully request Mayor Wells recuse himself from all PBID, CBD-related actions going onward. I also urge the vote to vote no on the enabling ordinance. The current PBID has been operated by individuals who, based on the public record, have failed to preserve or produce the required documents surrounding the RFP and the subsequent submissions. Approving the CBD ordinance under these circumstances would create the appearance the city is attempting to bury the mistakes of one taxing authority by replacing it with another under the same management that created the problem. Finally, I urge the council to place an item on the next meeting agenda directing the city to request an FBI investigation into the circumstances surrounding the missing RFP records, the issues of the contract, and the roles of Mr. Lamandry and Mr. Mitchell. For these reasons, I respectfully regret no vote be taken on the item today, which is happening. The mayor and the other city council members who believe they might have a conflict of interest recuse themselves from the discussion and vote, and an agenda item be placed on the next city council meeting to discuss contacting the FBI. Thank you for your attention.
Next speaker is Ray Justice.
Good afternoon.
Hello, sir.
I sure welcome the meeting today, and I've a wonderful opportunity that I've had the pleasure of meeting Renee Alvarez, Yasmin Torres, and Vince DiMaggio. And I've had some discussions with these gentlemen, and I got to compliment the city of El Cajon of what they have done, not only for me, but for my family and the residents on Chase Avenue. And needless to say, my main interest is in Chase Avenue. And I've been watching that since I was 15 years old. The traffic that's concerned on Chase Avenue. On 732, I raised my first half family. There was 3 young ladies. And since that little house that I built for $10,000, I outgrew it. So I moved next door and I bought 744. And and today, I think I don't know, something like 92, 93 years old. And my main reason to be here today is to thank the councilman, the city, the mayor, that has been such a help to me and my family and my friends on Chase Avenue. I'm very fortunate. Started out with $2 in my pocket in National City, and I moved to El Cajon 2 years later, and I had $2 in my pocket, and I settled down on Chase Avenue. So needless to say, my main interest is in Chase Avenue, and Chase Avenue and community of El Cajon has been miraculous to me, and from $2, I can't imagine what those $2 have done, and I got to credit that to the people of El Cajon and the management. These last 3 weeks that I've had dealing with the councilman and different representatives of the government has been such a help to me. And my reason to be here today is to thank these gentlemen that is representing the people of El Cajon and what they have done for not only me, but my family, and actually my 40 grandkids. And I don't know how to express that, except I made several dollars in El Cajon, and my devotion is to put back some of that money on Chase Avenue. And I think I've done my part. I must have built and remodeled over 100 homes in the San Diego area, which is Spring Valley, Lemon Grove, all these little towns. And now I have a home on the beach in La Jolla, and my comment is to get it on the market and take some of that money and spread it back in El Cajon. And it would be my desire to accomplish this. And what I want to say today, I wanted to thank these different people. It's been such a help of straightening out the traffic on Chase Avenue. And so far, they got most of that curb painted red. And it would be my desire to see that whole street with a red curb from Chase Avenue to Mollison, because I know what's on the plan to bring all them cars in from that main road out toward the extension of El Cajon. But I just want to say thanks for all that you've done, and I appreciate all the help that have gotten. And I want to spend the rest of my days that I have in El Cajon, in Santee, to put part of that money back in El Cajon. And I hope that money that goes back in El Cajon can help other people. And I'm not asking for any money from El Cajon. I do want to put some more money back in El Cajon, and that's my desire. And also, I would like to see that whole red curb on Chase Avenue painted red. And it goes in front of 4 of my houses. And I'm taking all the houses off of Chase and putting them on the side street. So
Mr.
the-
Jessup, we really appreciate you coming, and
Excuse me?
we appreciate you coming today.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sasha Omick.
Afternoon, Mayor,
Hello, sir.
Council. I'm here representing the El Cajon lateral sewer liability reform. And I'm gonna be honest with you today, I'm angry. Not because a pipe failed, infrastructure fails. I'm angry because my family did everything we were supposed to. We bought our first home. We scoped the sewer. We maintained the property. We followed the rules. And 4 months later, we were handed a bill for more than $75,000 for infrastructure buried beneath a public street. I wake up every day knowing the debt is still there. Excuse me. I look at my daughter and I think of what the money was supposed to be for her, for our future, projects we wanted to do at the house, the security thought we had finally built. And now every decision is different because something we never saw coming and could never have prevented. What frustrates me more is before this happened, I didn't know the risk existed. Most homeowners don't. Most home buyers don't. Most families have no idea that a failure beneath a public street can become their responsibility overnight. This pipe changed my life, not because it's a pipe, because everything that it came with. The stress, the uncertainty, the sleepless nights, the conversations no families want to have. I'm not asking you to solve my problems today. I'm asking you to understand why I keep showing up. Because after living through this, I can't help but think about my family. The next first-time home buyer, the next young family trying to get ahead, the next person who is about to learn about this policy the same way I did when the bill arrives. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mike?
Welcome.
John, welcome. So I originally was going to come up here and to speak on the Cajon Valley District. I know you guys have no skin in the game. You guys have no.
I'm having a little trouble hearing. Would you mind speaking more into the microphone?
Yeah, I said I originally was going to come up here and speak on some current concerns I have about regarding the Cajon Valley District, school district. I realize you guys have no ability to do anything with that. There was a couple things I wanted to speak about, but I think I'm going to wait because I'm actually going to go and I think to the meeting and speak there instead. Because I do have a couple of concerns about the local accountability plan not being met, and concerns about the stipend the stipend increase from February of this year, I believe it was, and a few other things that should not have happened. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Last speaker is Eva Omick.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome, thank you for having me. My name is Eva Omick, and I'm a homeowner on Palomar Avenue. Sasha is my son. And I come before you today because I'm very concerned about, as a homeowner and a citizen and a taxpayer, of what happened to him could happen to me. And to try to deal with a $75,000+ bill on a fixed income would be devastating. And when I've talked to my neighbors and people in the area, they have no idea that what's beyond our property line is not covered by the city in our tax dollars. In April, when I was shocked with the knowledge that if I need plumbing work done beyond my property line, the total cost is on me. And what happened to my son in April, when his lower lateral collapsed, which was like 27 feet into the street, he has to bear the total cost of $75,000. And it's like, I'm wondering how many of you would be not shocked by this, and how easy would it be for you to incur this expense? And the average person, myself, I'm retired and on a fixed income, And I think this is how people become homeless. It's easy to see how something like this, when you're a good citizen, tax-paying person doing the right thing, or a new homeowner who's trying to get their start, when they have something like this happen to them, that it's devastating. And I just think that the knowledge should be made to the public that what's beyond your property line is not up for the city to take care of, but maybe it should be, because most people think it is covered by the city and our taxpayers' dollars. So if that information could be spread out, would be lovely, so that other people aren't shocked and have to be put in a position like my son or possibly myself.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
There are no other speakers for public comment, sir.
Okay. We have two public hearings on today's agenda. Item 8 is an introduction of ordinance for policy 706 for military equipment use and to approve annual military equipment reports. Staff will tell us about this. There you go. It's on now.
Okay. My name is Nick Sprecco. I'm a lieutenant with the El Cajon Police Department. I'm currently assigned to the Professional Standards Division. And today, I will go over the requirements outlined in Assembly Bill 481 and further describe the El Cajon Police Department's military equipment report for 2025. So all of the equipment that we have that is categorized as military equipment complies with federal, state, and local laws, as well as the El Cajon Police Department's policy. The policy itself and the military equipment report is available on our website. It is used during critical incidents under authorization of police supervisors. It is used by personnel specifically trained in the use of that equipment. And today we are seeking approval by the City Council. So I just want to go into a little bit of background on the law itself. On September 30th, 2021, Governor Newsom signed this law, which requires a public forum to address the funding, acquisition, and use of law enforcement equipment specified in the law as military equipment. The law also requires each law enforcement agency's governing body to adopt a written policy by ordinance, to review the ordinance annually, and for each law enforcement agency to produce a report outlining the funding, acquisition, and use of the specified equipment. So as far as the equipment report goes, as you can see up on your screen, we are required to outline the usage and purpose, the complaints and any concerns, audits and violations, total cost and funding, the current inventory itself, and any future acquisitions. So the actual list of military equipment in the law is much longer than this. However, in the bullet points you see here, this is the equipment that the El Cajon Police Department currently has in our inventory. We have unmanned aerial systems, which we commonly know as drones, robots. We have an armored personnel carrier, which we commonly know or refer to as the Bearcat. Specialized firearms with ammunition using ammunition less than 50 caliber. Explosive breaching equipment and breaching munitions. Chemical agents, pepper spray, pepper ball projectiles, specialty less lethal munitions and flashbangs, kinetic energy weapons, a long-range acoustic device, which is essentially a loud PA speaker, and command and control vehicles. In 2025, we added 3 pieces of equipment to our inventory. They include 3 rifles for the SWAT team. LWRC is the brand of the rifle. 9 Skydio drones, and 8 pepper ball launchers. Saber is the brand. So those were funded through two grants. The rifles and pepper ball launchers were funded through the Community-Oriented Police Services grant. That's a federally funded grant through the Department of Justice. And the Skydio drones were funded through UASI, which is the Urban Area Security Initiative. That's another federal grant, which is through the Department of Homeland Security. So for 2025, we'll go into some of the equipment highlights and how we use them. So the Throwbot is typically used for clearing interior structures for armed or potentially armed suspects during high-risk incidents. The remote viewing capability provides officers with increased situational awareness and the ability to de-escalate situations from a position of safety. They were used a total of 23 times in 2025 for training, patrol assistance, and for SWAT callouts. This is our Bearcat that you see in the photo on the screen. It offers a higher degree of ballistic capability, a protection for first responders, including police and fire, and even civilians in the event of rescue missions. It was utilized 13 times in 2025, 8 times for SWAT-related incidents, and 5 times for patrol. We also have a very robust drone as a first responder program. They improve situational awareness. They're often the first to arrive on scene and allow first responders to safely address evolving situations. They responded or were utilized 1,452 times in 2025 for things such as photo flights, evidence collection, overwatch for police operations and special events, area searches for evidence, suspects, missing people, and for our drone as a first responder program. We have several command and control vehicles. The SWAT Metro was utilized 6 times in 2025 for callouts and high-risk warrant services, and the Crisis Negotiation Team vehicle was utilized four times. Both of those serve as essentially mobile command posts and for communication purposes. This is an image of our Sabre pepperball launcher. It's exactly as you see on the screen. It's essentially a paintball gun that launches a round projectile filled with a chemical agent. And those were used a total of 4 times in 2025 to subdue felony suspects. Kinetic energy weapons, those would be commonly known as your beanbag guns. In this case, we use 40 millimeter launchers. They can deploy both chemical agents and impact munitions. And they were utilized a total of 3 times in 2025 for assault of suspects. As far as accountability goes, we conduct an annual review of all of our use of what is categorized as military equipment. In addition to use of force, there were no complaints regarding the use of military equipment, and our annual use of force review revealed no policy violations regarding the use of military equipment. So for each year, we have to explain what we intend to purchase. As far as consumable military equipment, that will be acquired based on use to include training, operational use, and manufacturer replacement guidelines. That includes ammunition, explosive breaching equipment, chemical agents and specialty munitions, noise flash diversionary devices, which we refer to as flashbangs, and kinetic energy weapons. Munitions, excuse me. And for 2026, there are no projected acquisitions for non-consumable military equipment. And with that, I open it up to any questions.
Thanks for your report. I really appreciate it. Let me see if there's any questions of the council. Anybody have any questions? I guess you answered all our questions already. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
All right. Public hearing is now open. Angela, have you speaker cards?
There are no speaker cards, sir.
Make a motion then to close the public hearing. Please raise your hand and say aye if you agree. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
So looking for a motion to accept the report.
I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance and renew and approve policy 706 in the annual report.
All right, moved and seconded. Please vote by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote. And the title to the ordinance is an ordinance reviewing and approving ordinance 5199 to renew restrictions relating, sorry, I lost my place. Relating to purchase of military equipment, supplies, or other property for law enforcement use, approving the El Cajon Police Department's annual military equipment report for 2025-2026, and approving policy 706, military equipment use 2026 edition.
Thank you. All right, the last public hearing on today's agenda, item 9, is for the 2026-27 annual City Housing Authority and successor agency budget. Staff will tell us about this, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Autumn Rieberger, and I'm the Principal Fiscal Analyst for the City of El Cajon. Today, I will be presenting you with the fiscal year 2026-27 proposed annual budget. For today's presentation, I will provide budget updates from council feedback given at the June 9th meeting, review of the fiscal year 27 budgets for non-general fund funds, including wastewater, special revenue, debt service, and internal service funds. City Manager Graham Mitchell will have a few comments after my presentation, and I will close by seeking adoption of the FY 26-27 annual budget. As soon as it is available, our budget document will be accessible online on the city's website. I would like to take a quick moment again to thank Jesus Velasquez and our Development Services Department for allowing us to use this beautiful picture of a double rainbow he took from City Hall earlier this year. You should recognize the slide from our June 9th meeting. It's an overall look at our budget components. This slide has been updated based on the council's feedback at the last meeting and reflects a revised total budget of $279.1 million. Changes made from the June 9th meeting include reinstating the police lab, which included adding back 5.5 FTEs, reinstating the reduction of fire overtime, which is the Squad 6 impact, and a revised use of reserves of $3 million. The revised fiscal year 2026-27 general fund budget begins with an estimated beginning carryover reserve balance of $8.3 million. Revenues are projected at $104.5 million. Operating expenditures are $107.4 million, resulting in a projected ending carryover reserve balance of $5.4 million going into fiscal year 2028. Moving on to the non-general fund funds, we'll begin with wastewater fund. The wastewater fund is the city's only enterprise fund. This type of fund is used for services that are paid for by user fees rather than tax revenues. Wastewater service charges support the operation, maintenance, and capital needs of the sewer system, making the fund largely self-sustaining while remaining publicly owned. For fiscal year 2026-27 proposed budget, we have a beginning fund balance of $64.2 million, with anticipated revenues of $35.2 million, which are collected from fees, expenditures of $37.2 million, and capital projects expenditures of $22.8 million, resulting in a projected ending fund balance of $39.3 million. Next, we'll take a look at the special revenue fund. Special revenue funds are used to track money that can only be spent on specific purchases, such as grants or dedicated tax revenues. This helps ensure the funds are used as intended and provides transparency and accountability. For example, the city collects a tax dedicated to street maintenance. Those revenues are placed in a special revenue fund, so they can only be used for street repair and improvement projects. The top 5 non-multi-year special revenue funds for 27 are street maintenance and gas tax, $4.8 million, low moderate housing at approximately $2.9 million, Magnolia Performing Arts Center is just under $1 million. Recreation special programs at approximately $615,000, and local public safety at around $518,000. On to debt service funds. A debt service fund is used to set aside and track money for the repayment of the city's loans and bonds. By keeping these resources separate, the city can ensure debt payments are made on schedule while maintaining transparency and accountability for its long-term financial obligations. The city's only debt service fund is for pension obligation bonds and budgeted at $9.1 million for fiscal year 27. Lastly, we have internal service funds. An internal service fund is used to account for services provided by one city department to other city departments. Examples include fleet maintenance, information technology, and facility services. By charging departments for the services they use, the city can more accurately track costs, allocate resources, and manage shared services effectively and transparently. We have 5 internal service funds. The fiscal year 2027 budget for these are vehicle maintenance at $3.1 million, vehicle replacement at $1.1 million, self-insurance at $8.1 million, IT is $6.4 million, and post-employment benefits are $11.5 million. We have not included any new capital improvement projects in the preliminary fiscal year 27 budget. We do plan to return in the fall with a CIP budget for FY27. Looking forward, we have a tentative timeline for budget review and reporting for the upcoming fiscal year. Our first quarter report will be in the early fall of 2026, annual pension review in fall of 26, 5-year business plan late fall of 26. We'll be back for the mid-year report in early 2027, and looking again for the fiscal year 2027-28 annual budget in the spring of 2027. At this time, I'll turn the remainder of the presentation over to City Manager, Mr. Graham Mitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Rehberger. Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. One of the things that the City Council directed staff to do at the last council meeting was to look at the long-term financial projections and the implications of utilizing reserve funds on what that looks like to our general fund reserve. So staff took an opportunity to do that in the last 2 weeks. The challenge with modeling is there's a lot of unknowns, and so staff actually created 3 different models, and I'll just show you what those look like, and then council can determine kind of on an individual basis which model you think resonates best with you. One model that we looked at is we do a 5-year business plan every single year, and that projects out 10 years. So utilizing that model along with the latest and greatest sales tax data, property tax data, expenditures that we are aware of, including the inclusion of fire overtime with Squad 6 and reinstatement of the lab. We included that all in and modified the 5-year business plan. So throughout my examples, you'll see 5-year, that's that one model. And frankly, it's probably the most conservative of the models when it comes to both revenue and expenditures. The other is I took the last 10 years looking at revenue from all of our major sources, and I looked at expenditures for public safety expenditures and non-public public safety expenditures and combined those and looked at what the last 10 years looked like and said, okay, if we were to project those out another 10 years, that's what that would look like. And it's significantly different. And I wonder how much COVID had an impact with that, both good and bad. And then I took sort of what I call a blended model, where there are some areas where I felt like there was growth in sales tax that we probably won't see post-COVID, and soften that. And we also saw some large increases in our costs because of inflation. So I softened some of those and created this blended model. So let me just kind of share really quickly what those models look like, and then I'll share what they look like graphically. So with the 5-year model, revenue grows at about 4%, expenditures grow at about 2.5%. Looking at the last 10 years, revenue's actually grown overall by about 5.4% per year. These are per year growth. Expenditures have grown almost 6%. Public safety costs have grown almost 9% per year, and non-public safety costs have grown at a little under 2%. This using the growth assumptions, I assumed that the 15 positions that we currently have frozen stay frozen, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. That's probably not sustainable, and it has an impact on the service we can provide the city. So that may be maybe too Pollyannic in that perspective. And then I looked at a blended model, assuming an annual revenue growth of about 5% a year and an annual growth of expenditures of about 4.28% a year. So let me just show you really quickly what this looks like graphically. As you can see, from a revenue perspective, if you factor out those projections 10 years, it ends up only being $15 million difference between the two different high and low versions of the modeling, which isn't that big. The blended model tracks a little bit closer to the 10-year average, so it's a little bit more optimistic than the 5-year adjusted from the 5-year business plan. While the revenue has a pretty narrow variance of $15 million, the expenditure growth assumptions can differ much, or can be much larger, to the point of $51 million, depending on how aggressive you think the city's going to be with cuts, or how optimistic we can provide benefits to our employees. So those are kind of the two big swings that we saw between the 5-year adjusted model and the 10-year model. The blended model almost splits the difference right down the middle. This graph just really shows the high and low of the revenue shown in blue and the expenditures shown in red. So depending on which model you like, theoretically, if you want to take the really optimistic view on revenue, and we're gonna really hold the line on expenditures, we do pretty good. Looking at the blended assumptions, though, which I think is probably a little bit more accurate, I looked at, we knew that we would be going into this fiscal year and probably the next few fiscal years at a deficit, and then we would slowly be creeping back to that stabilized number. Let me show you what these scenarios look like on their impact actually on reserves. And I apologize, there's a lot of data here, but I'll just highlight the key lines. So under the 5-year, with all 3 different models, you can see that this year we will spend about $3 million more than we will bring in terms of revenue. So so we are planning on relying on the general fund reserve by about $3 million this upcoming fiscal year. Under the 5-year model projections, we think that number actually decreases in 2028, goes back up a little bit in 2029 because of some outstanding labor contracts that we have. And then we start narrowing that down. And by year 31, we actually are back into putting money back into the general fund reserve. Again, I think that's an optimistic model. The 10-year model, which is probably the most pessimistic model, shows that real compounding impact that the council had talked about at the last council meeting. And you can see that there's almost every year a $1 to $2 to $3 million impact as we eat away at the general fund reserve. And then the blended, again, we stay in deficit mode for a little bit, but we start evening it out into year 10. So what does that do? How quickly does that eat up our carry over reserve? We have about $8.3 million going into this fiscal year. It means that we would, based on the 5-year model, assuming no other changes, just kind of keeping the status quo, we will be dipping into other reserves over the next 4 years. But again, starting in year 32, we'll come out of that and start putting money back into the reserves. Under the 10-year model, we will exceed the $8 million by year 3. It'll be well gone. And the blended model, we start eating away at it, really half of it by year FY30, and then it starts dissipating after that. I also included, just for fun, the carryover as well as the economic reserve money. This is clearly not, we are clearly in an economic crisis now. Crisis may be a strong word, but we're in an economic situation where our revenues have been flat. It'd be hard pressed to say our revenues will be flat for the next 10 years, and that's clearly a structural deficit if we're having to rely on our both of those funds over the next 10 years. But as you can see under the 5-year model, we're fine. Under the 10-year look-back model, we not only eat up all of those reserves, all of the carryover reserves, but we eat up all the economic reserves, economic uncertainty reserves by year FY31. And the blended, we rely on that economic reserve, but we start getting closer and closer to not using it by year FY37. So I guess at the end of the day, and these are more rhetorical questions, do you trust the analysis? Are you more optimistic or less optimistic on revenue, or more optimistic or less optimistic on the ability to hold the line on expenditures? And at the end of the day, how much of the reserves is the city council really comfortable using? I'll share with you some of my leave behinds as I looked at some of this data. So I am concerned about the short-term impacts of today's expenditures and reliance on the general fund reserve. I do see that compounding effect that the city council talked about at the last city council meeting, using one-time money, reserve money, to pay for ongoing costs. If you notice, if we deficit spend for 3 years, unless the council does massive cuts, it takes, let's say you use the general fund reserve for 3 years, it almost takes 3 years to get back out of that unless you do something really dramatic. So you just have to say, we're gonna have to taper this back up over time, hoping that revenues catch up at some point while we hold the line on our expenditures. That's kind of the way to get out of the deficit, unless, you want to make major structural changes to what the city council provides in terms of what services the city council provides. I also am concerned that this model assumes that the austerity measures that are currently in place stay in place, the 15 frozen positions. Those are not sustainable long-term. There's programs that are being cut this year that we should bring back at some point. We're not going to be providing passport service this upcoming fiscal year, which I know is a popular service. We are not doing wellness programs for our employees, which is really vital. These are things that are people, and these are people that are coming from positions that are currently frozen. I'm also worried that this assumes that no general fund monies are being put back into the CIP fund or the vehicle replacement fund. So that this assumes we put no general fund money into police cars, to fire engines, into public works vehicles. Some public works vehicles can be funded through gas tax or other funds, but for the most part, our public safety vehicles are general funded. So that assumes for the next 10 years, we're not putting money into those funds either. And it assumes that other cuts that we've made will stay in place. I don't know if the council heard this last week, but we are cutting janitorial services at the fire station, or not the fire station, but the police building, city hall building. So yours truly will be taking out garbage twice a week, as is everybody going to be doing that. And at the end of the day, is that the best use of your staff's time? Probably not, but it's the only way the Public Works Department could come up with an additional $60,000 in cuts. So even though that makes sense, maybe year over year or year by year, long term it does not make sense. It's clearly not sustainable. However, despite sort of this gloomy outcome and what I'm telling you, I am encouraged that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I do think under that blended model, I think we get closer to achieving a balanced budget and we get out of the structural deficit. However, every dollar we use the reserves this year is one more dollar we're going to have to figure out how to cut next year unless this miraculous revenue source comes into our laps, which I'm not foreseeing in the near future. Given that, I'm actually recommending a few things based on our discussions between last council meeting and this council meeting. One is, I think there is value in exploring crime lab options with the County of San Diego. I am not recommending that the City Council cut the crime lab. I'm recommending that we explore what options are available so we're not painted into a corner, and the council knows all of its range of options it has. There could be, as we dialogue with the county, some potential win-wins. And until we have that conversation with the County of San Diego, I can't explore those win-wins. And so I will be providing notice to our labor groups that I will be entering some discussions with the County of San Diego to talk about the crime lab. But rest assured, the crime lab is fully funded in this current budget. I also want to consider, and this will be a recommendation of the City Council, that we consider keeping Engine 208 staffed at the 2/3 level that it is currently staffed at right now. It is currently budgeted for all three engine companies, but we do not have the staffing for that. So what I would recommend is we don't fill the vacancies for that last third company. It shows that we're still moving forward. We're not taking away any services, and it maintains all the overtime that the Squad 6 proposal was going to have an impact on. I'm not recommending that we do this for 4 years, but it does give you the ability, depending on the economy and where we're at, to keep that in place over a period of time. Or if revenues come in at a higher rate than we thought, it actually allows you to implement that with a pretty quick recruitment to bring those folks on mid-year if that were the case economically. Let me just show you what this looks like, though, from a 4-year perspective. So this is the cost of Engine 208 over the next 4 years with the FEMA Safer Grant. It's about $6.8 million per year. The dark, the purple or the blue is the city's cost as part of the staffing Engine 208, and the yellow is the FEMA grant portion.
Is
So
this
if we-
fully staffed?
This is fully staffed. If we were to go to 2/3 staff, this is what this looks like. It goes from $6.8 million to $3.6 million. That's a savings of $3.2 million over 4 years. Again, I'm not recommending we keep Engine 208 at 2/3 over the next 4 years, but that just gives you a sense of how much money that would save over a period of time. Each given year, it's about $800,000, at least for this next year, it'd be $800,000. And I can show the council where that comes, how that money is derived a little bit later on if the council is interested. So my recommendations are that we continue to explore crime lab options while keeping it funded in this current fiscal year. Consider staffing Engine 208 at 2/3 level in FY 2027, not reducing any services that we currently have on board right now, and then adopting the budget as presented with the reductions of Engine 208 staffing. So with that, I'm going to turn the time back over to Ms. Rehberger for the final recommendation, and then staff's here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. At the request of the city attorney, we ask that you take separate actions as each of the following entities: City Council, Housing Authority, and successor agency. Today, our recommendations are: acting as the City Council, adopt the resolution of the City of El Cajon adopting the fiscal year 26-27 annual budget as written, amend the fiscal year 26-27 annual budget by a reduction of $800,000 in the fire department, resolution approving and adopting the annual appropriations limit for the fiscal year 26-27, acting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, adopt resolution titled Resolution of the El Cajon Housing Authority adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 budget. And finally, acting as the successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors, adopt resolution titled Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Cajon as the successor agency to the former El Cajon Redevelopment Agency adopting the fiscal year 26-27 budget. This concludes our presentation. We thank you for your time and consideration and are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, would you like to ask any questions right now? Thank you very much. How about Graham or the other staff? No? Okay. All right, then. We will Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mitchell, I'm a little bit concerned about the cut of the 1/3 on engine 208. How much do we actually save that way? And what's the fully loaded cost for a firefighter?
I actually put together, this is actually a slide that we presented a while ago, so I re-pulled this back up. This is the cost to staff one engine company. This assumes a company is funded by a captain, a fire captain, a fire engineer, and a firefighter, paramedic. And these are what are called loaded costs. So this is our all-in costs: salary, benefits, liability, unfunded pension liability that we are required to pay for them. So it includes everything. It doesn't assume someone at the highest step, but it does not include any educational incentives or any overtime costs associated with that. So you can see that a fire captain is almost pushing $300,000 in a cost to the city. A firefighter, paramedic is, a fire engineer is over $250,000, and a paramedic firefighter is about $240,000. So that's our all-in costs. If you throw in fuel and other things associated with the staff, the maintenance or the operation of a fire engine, 1/3 of the time, we think it comes out to be about $800,000 if we only staff at the 1/3 level.
And that's
Or
three
2/3.
three employees.
That's
in
3
there.
employees.
Yeah.
And it's 3 employees we currently don't have, so we're not reducing staffing, it's actually just not hiring staffing for these additional spots. Now, just so it's more for the public, so the public doesn't think that we're paying fire captains $300,000 a year, we did look at what typical take-home pay is, and this is a blended amount for between fire captains, engineers, and firefighter paramedics. The average firefighter or floor non-management fire personnel in our city makes a little under $200,000, with the high making $200,000 and almost $90,000 last year, and a lot of that's made up with overtime. So last year, the median overtime rate was about $60,000. The low was $23,000, and the high was $176,000. So that kind of gives you a sense of the costs that we bear for an engine company.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Phil.
So I just want to clarify, we are currently at 2/3 staffing with 208?
Correct. We currently have staffing for 2/3 to function 2/3 to operate 2/3 of engine 208.
Okay, and your recommendation is to keep it at the current staffing levels?
Correct, not to reduce any services that we currently have.
And not reducing any services that we currently have would include Squad 6?
Correct. Squad 6 stays operational as it is today.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, yeah, go ahead.
Another question for Joel. If we compare it to what we had 2 years ago, our fire protection, is it about the same? Is it less? Is it a little bit more?
Well, as you know, Station 8 is one of our busiest stations. It is our busiest station. Well, I shouldn't say that. Station 6 is the busiest station, but there's 3 apparatus running out of 6. With 1 apparatus running out of 8, it's the busiest engine company or engine operation in the city. One of the busiest in the county of San Diego. With the addition of engine 208, which just came online a month ago or so, we are in a better position than we were last year. We were in a better position than we were 2 months ago.
So the safety regarding fire is better now than it previously was 2 years ago?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask Angela if we have any speaker cards.
We have one, sir, from Arnold Levine.
Good afternoon, Mayor, city council, and the city staff. Give me 1 second.
Could you get just a little bit closer to the microphone, please?
I will. Okay. Sorry. So I'm a real estate broker for 40 years. Former mayor candidate, me and Bill Wells had 2022. And my health is based on, and running again, was challenged by a relapse cancer, the 5th time, 26 years. But I prepared this when I thought I could run, but now I have to make some personal decisions for medical. So my voice is a little hoarse from dealing with this cancer after all that time. My concerns at this time is just a regular citizen in El Cajon. And the research I did, some of it might be already outdated based on some of the information Graham gave. But this is ideas. I heard him in 3 sentences say cut about 15 times. And we're not talking about creating new revenue, and that's my concern. And that is, I'll just get to this since I have 3 minutes of what I prepared. We're looking at a 1.461.5 million shortfall. Is that right, Graham? Or do I just give a speech? I can't ask questions. But if I'm off, forgive me for my research. To fix that on the table, the immediate spending is about 2.5% for my research, and spending reduction across every single municipal department as we were discussing. In the real world, it means cutting back on services for all our citizens, including insurance, is going up through the roof. So when you start talking about cutting back, it's lives and money that we have to pay out of pocket along with the inflation parameter. The solution is not going to be about cutting. You can only cut so much before you don't have a city that's running. So the idea is creating revenue and working on assets that we have on the back table and working on creative new methods of bringing in income, which has not been discussed. In the past, you might have discussed it. So looking at cutting back the fire department, looking at all these wraparound services that are needed to run the city. First, short-term immediate solution is the emergency reserves that we are talking about today in lieu of layoffs. The administration is hesitant to touch the reserves because it drops below the standard policy, but let's be reasonable. If layoffs of 5 police officers, like I said, this could be outdated since I researched it.
Sir, excuse me for just 1 second. We don't have anybody else. I'm going to give him a few minutes. I want to hear what he has to say.
Okay.
But if you could just keep it reasonable, I appreciate that.
I
Thanks.
try to time this at 3 minutes, but
It's hard, I know.
we have a gift to gab when we're in public, so. So the immediate administration is hesitant, like I said. And that's exactly, for a rainy fund, that's why we do that. So those are the problems, what we're looking at. And so it really comes down to is more commercial growth of what the city's doing. So 40 years being a real estate broker, part of what I know the possibilities, and that's how we make deals on possibilities. So we have a massive asset, which is the center of our city, Parkway Plaza, with over 400 square feet and vacant space. The city's strategy is that we could bypass the bureaucratic gridlock immediately by introducing temporary tenants using that space. For example, pop-up businesses. So those, like, you've probably heard of them, like pop-up restaurants. They could do that in areas that there's vacancies, short-term vacancies. Set up a restaurant, knock it down. This is just one of an appetizer of ideas that we should be looking at outside the box. By the way, El Cajon means the box, translated to English. So By activating just a portion of that idle space and short-term leases, we could generate economic activity. This creates an instant cash flow, estimated 350,000 to 500,000 in direct first year municipal sales tax and licensing revenue flowing straight into El Cajon's general fund. This arm length funding that stops the financial bleeding. So in Hebrew, I'm Jewish, so there's a word called avud hadadat. It means a mutual guarantee and understanding that we rise and fall together. And one of the ideas is there, for example, some of the blocking on this project, which could generate a lot of income for the mall, would be there's Israeli investor that has 60 acres, and he's stuck in bankruptcy in Israel. And so part of the idea is to try to, if you didn't do it already, is to work on negotiating something with the bankruptcy court and the judge and that individual to be able to move on, because I feel this is a moneymaker. You guys already know it. So that's pretty much the gist. Just to give you an appetizer of ideas,
Okay.
but I'm not an expertise like Graham is or like the city
Well,
council.
those are all good ideas, and we are thinking about revenue all the time, but thank you for your thoughts.
And I'll volunteer anything that I could do to help this particular project.
Leave your information.
Okay, I will.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much, everybody.
No other speaker cards, sir.
Nobody else?
No other cards.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to close the public hearing. All right. If you're in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, back to the city council for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, first of all, start out, I think that we need to rely on what staff has come up with. They are the experts. They are the ones who do all the work for us. And so I'd like to move that we go ahead and adopt all three of the recommendations, and I can go through that one by one.
We're pulling those up right now on the screen.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 annual budget as written. Amend the fiscal year. Is that a separate one or is that together?
I believe they can be together from the city council unless the finance.
So A, B, and C will all go for one?
Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead. I'd like to move that we adopt A, B, and C as written, as staff has recommended. Do I have a second?
Before we get to the second, just open up for a little discussion. Does anybody else want to say anything? Yeah. Steve, you start. What? You look so eager.
No, I really try not to do this. Let's go to slide 22, please. We've heard the phrase using one-time money for ongoing costs. I guess I could have a point of view that pension money, IRA money, and 401k money is one-time money for ongoing costs. I'm looking for slide 22, whoever controls the slides. Thanks. How much a reserve is City Council comfortable using? We started the year with 14.2 million. We are projected to end the year at 8.3 million, or we used about 5.9 million this year. And we've already discussed why we've done that. We're projected to end up next year with 5.3 million, or using about 2.9, roughly $3 million again next year. And that increased a little bit from our last meeting to preserve Squad 6 operations as they are, as well as keep the crime lab. So even with the full budget as presented, we would end the year with 5.4 million. I get it's a budget. I get it's a projection. I think we're also sitting on $2.5 million of an office space at 405 East Lexington Avenue that I think we just shouldn't be in the landlord business anymore. I think that's another source of funds to help stretch things out for us. But it depends on getting a good deal for the property, an appropriate deal for the public. But I do think we should investigate the sale of 405 East Lexington Avenue. As far as revenue issues, I can't force a developer to build in the city. There is space to build. I cannot force them to build and get new property tax revenue. I can't force a property owner to sell their property and reset Prop 13 so we get higher sales tax. We have the lowest per capita property tax income of any of the 18 cities in the county. What I can do, and what we have done, is we are the only city among the 18 that does not charge $40,000 to $60,000 per unit of development impact fees. That is to entice developers to come to our city. That is something we have control over, and we have made the right call there. As far as the budget, there's been some talk about the final budget includes cuts. No, it doesn't. Any talk about that's false, and I really am concerned and disturbed by that. I do think that we have the funds in reserve. The reserve, there's different buckets of reserve, but the reserve I'm talking about is the carryover reserve. And we have a carryover reserve because city staff has been great at keeping expenses below revenue in prior years. And we've had to carry over unused money. That's great. It's time to spend that money. I don't necessarily have a strong, firm opinion on dipping into the $20 million of economic uncertainty, but for sure I will spend all of that carryover money to keep as much city services as I can, because we saved it. City staff saved it. They were good at it. And city staff went out and got a SAFER grant. So there's a lot of great things happening on the revenue. I will have a different motion, but I will wait and see how the wind blows on this one.
Okay. Next.
So with regard to, the economy, are we more optimistic, less optimistic? I tend to view the economy in a less optimistic perspective. I don't know that it's going to rebound as quickly as we'd all hope it would, given that you present a good question, City Manager, how much of the reserves is City Council comfortable using? I think we have a savings account for when economic downturns occur. So we don't have to cut services. It's taxpayer money, and I think it should be used on services. That being said, this isn't going to last forever. And I think the presentation shows that the more we dip into our reserves each year, the smaller our savings is going to be. So there's got to be something that changes, and it may be viewed as, kicking the can down the road to some degree, but at the end of the day, taxpayer money, this is taxpayer money, and these are essential services. I believe the Crime Lab, 208, Squad 6, those are essential city services, and so we should use it. We should use that money for those purposes. That being said, I don't think this is going to be, it's very hard to continually vote for a budget that is in a deficit. We're just eating into our savings. So at some point, we're going to have to make even harder decisions that we're making right now, which is making those cuts. So I would implore staff to continue looking at not if we have to make cuts, but when we have to make cuts. Unless we rebound, economically, we're not going to be able to sustain this farther than a year or two. And it looks like we've been, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Manager, but we've been dipping into our savings for the past 2 years to cover our budget, or?
We've budgeted to do so, but because we've been so frugal, we've actually generated a little bit of surplus at least the previous year.
Okay.
We ate up that surplus this last year.
Okay.
But yeah, so we budgeted wise, yes, but as
the year went on,
we were able to keep, revenues did not go up. In fact, revenues tracked almost exactly what we thought they were going to be.
but we were able to find some
We
savings.
were able to find savings by holding back positions, not filling non-public safety positions.
Right.
So
Okay.
we've been able to do that, but that's long-term not sustainable.
Okay. I'd say that there's, to some degree, the carryover reserve, I'm comfortable using that money. The other buckets, that's a lot larger of a conversation, if and when, well, I should say when the carryover reserve declines. But I want to put all this in context. Seems like a lot of different municipalities and cities are in the exact same position that we're in, but they don't have any options. They don't have the kind of reserves that El Cajon has built up through proper government management. So let's applaud ourselves with regard to we've managed our money well. We have options where other cities and municipalities don't. So that's that.
Well, coming up with a budget and trying to decide what future revenues are going to be is become very challenging because what the federal government does affects us, what the Federal Reserve does affects us, and I think this is a very well thought out budget. It's not extreme. I think we'll know a lot more in January, what happens with the national economy, and that kind of drives our economy. I think there are some revenue sources that we need to take a look at again, but as far as at this moment, I think this is an appropriate budget, and we may have to make some cuts next year. 74% of our budget is taken up by public safety, and that's the #1 job of local government. But then on the other side, somebody's got to write out the checks. Somebody's got to approve building permits. So I think we've cut a lot of the city services down to the bone. So we're going to have some really hard discussions next year on some revenue sources that some of my colleagues aren't going to like. So sometimes you have to just do something that isn't all that popular to pay all the bills. It's no different than our household bills. Sometimes you can't afford to go hire a guy to mow your lawn. And that's the first thing I cut back when we had issues a number of years ago. But I think we've been very prudent, and I want to congratulate my colleagues for being very prudent, because we don't have anybody up here that's saying, okay, let's get $20 million in bonds. I think that the chances of a sales tax increase are probably pretty low. I know Santee is going for a full 1% sales tax increase. I don't think that would fly in El Cajon. So we have got to work really hard in looking at new revenue sources, because we're not going to be able to cut much more in our spending, because it will lower the services. So again, I support this budget.
Thanks. Graham, I have a question for you. The $5 million in carryover reserve that we were talking about using, what is the actual cost of that? Because I know it's not just $5 million. if you take away the compounding part of it, and we lose that compounding value, say 10 years from now, what is the cost of spending $5 million look like? And to kind of put it in context, I'm thinking you go to buy a car, and the car is $30,000, and then the small print, they say it's really going to cost you $47,000 to buy this car because of the interest it costs over the long run. So do you have a sense of what that cost would be?
I don't. I can't do math like that off the top of my head. I don't know if Mr. Shane or Ms. Rehberger can, but I don't know that.
I thought you were.
If you gave me a recess, we could figure.
They told me you were a savant, that you could do it in your head.
Not that.
Clay, is that something that we can get some understanding of?
That to double to $10 million.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Say it.
At a 4% return, it would take 18 years for that 5 million to grow to 10 million.
Okay. But my question, though, is what is the cost of spending that money, or in essence, almost borrowing that money, I guess, or so? What is the cost versus what if we had left it alone, what it would have become?
I honestly don't have any idea what the going rate of municipal debt is right now. Just for perspective, the rate on our POBs that were issued in 2021, I believe, was just shy of 3%.
So and probably asking too much off the top of your head, but from a dollar perspective, if we left $5 million alone, 10 years from now, what would that look like versus spending 10 million? It wouldn't be just spending the 5 million. It wouldn't just be 5 million, right? There'd be a larger gap between what that money would have earned versus what we didn't earn by using it.
Well, I think that's largely dependent on the way the economy goes and the types of returns you could get at any given time. We spent a decade where earning 1% was kind of the normal, and it didn't make any sense to sit on money. It didn't grow at all. You could probably have seen that in your own 401ks and things like that. Things right now are growing a little bit better than that. So if it held like that, it would grow far more significantly. But to answer that, it would require a crystal ball that I don't have.
Okay, well, please bring it next time.
I'll do my best.
All right, I just want you to know what to give me my thoughts. I mean, this is the hardest part of this job. If I could fund everything we possibly would ever want, I think me and everybody else up here would love to do that. But right now, I'm looking at, the city of San Diego, which when I first started didn't have a huge budget deficit. Now they have a $150 million budget deficit. The county of San Diego, which when we first started this process, when I first started this process, didn't have much of a deficit. Now they have a $300 million deficit. And I don't want to be the guy who brought that to the city of El Cajon, because that's going to be a heavy burden for our children and our grandchildren to have to pay at some point. At the same time, I understand that police officers and firefighters need the proper equipment. They need to have enough staff to do their job. That's why I'm feeling like this idea about backing off of the Squad 6 idea and temporarily freezing the staffing levels on Engine 208 is not something that anybody's going to be overexcited about, but it does seem to make some sense to do that. And so I guess that's my long-winded way of saying that I'm comfortable in supporting the budget as well, but I do it at some level with a heavy heart, because I know that what we'd like to do is fully fund 208 right now and see that come along. And I believe that will still happen. I believe that is in our plans. But so Michelle's got a motion on the table. We haven't asked for a second yet. I think Steve was talking about a substitute motion. Oh, I'd be willing to second Michelle's vote.
Okay.
So it's,
So my substitute motion, if we could go back to the slide that has the recommendation. My substitute motion is for items 1A and 1C, and strike item 1B. I have fought for engine 208 for a long time. And it's all about, to me, it's kind of emotional because it's about people. It's about people's lives. And there is a saying, time is tissue, and we've got to reduce the response time. For too long, we've enjoyed, we've benefited from Lakeside, from San Miguel, but it's time that we step up. It's the first extra engine in 50 years in the city. We've got to keep it full. So my substitute motion is to have 1A and 1C and strike 1B, fully fund engine 208. That's my substitute motion.
Mr. City Manager, could you go back to your other recommendations about the crime lab? Okay, so
So that's not really a recommendation. I'm just letting the council know that I am going to notify the labor groups and have some conversation with the sheriff's department to see what the options are. If there are options, I'll bring them back to the city
Okay.
council. If not, there's no need to, unless the council gives me explicit direction not to
Not
contact
to,
the
but
county.
this is,
But
we
I-
don't need to.
It's within my authority to negotiate contracts.
I think you should. They could even put it in next year's budget as a regional lab that they fund fully. There are all sorts of options on that lab.
I just wanted to make sure that both motions didn't need to include giving you authorization to explore that.
Correct. The only connection to some of my thoughts were the amendment to the budget to reduce the fire budget by $800,000, reflective of the 1/3 of the company for 208.
Okay.
Can I clarify that? So is that really a reduction, or is that just not spending?
That's actually not a reduction, but it's taking that out of the budget, because right now the budget as presented, we were looking for, I asked the fire department to develop cuts, like every other department. They're not special, they're not more special than other departments, and the cut that they recommended was the reduction of service to the squad. After hearing testimony and after the council's direction, we put the squad back in and thought, well, we currently don't have the ability to fully staff Engine 208 right now. An easier recommendation to the city council is we just pause the recruitment of those 3 positions. So that's why I reinserted that as a recommendation for the city council to consider. And I think that $800,000 will go a long way to preserve the carryover reserves that you have.
Just to refresh my memory, when we were talking about this, I think slowing down the hiring process was always an option. Wasn't that, we discussed that. Everybody, as I remember, everybody pretty much said, let's just get started, and if we have to slow the process down, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. We actually went back and listened to the tapes, and we heard Mr. Goebel even referred to it, Engine 208, as a pilot program. So it has the ability to sort of upstaff and downstaff depending on financial needs. Mr. Ortiz asked, can we afford this? And my answer was, you probably can't afford this right now, but you have the option to reduce staff if that ever comes. I think this method, this model actually gets us to the point where we're not having to reduce staff. We're just not hiring the staff that we currently have that was in last week's budget based on your direction.
Okay, anybody else need more clarification?
I do. The SAFER grant was based on us making a certain commitment, and they would make a commitment. Does that recommendation change the numbers in the SAFER grant?
No, because we applied for 6 positions under the SAFER grant, and we agreed to fund 3 positions, but that did not have an impact. There's no, in the grant agreement, there's no requirement for us to have those other 3 positions. We'll continue to use the 6 that are SAFER grant funded, but we just won't use the 3 positions that we said that we were going to utilize.
Okay, point of order, we do have a motion on the floor. We
Yes.
have a second, and I think we have to have a
Well,
vote.
from a Robert's Rule of Order perspective, there's a motion on the table that's been seconded, but there was a substitute motion. So, I asked for some clarification on the substitute motion. So when everybody's done asking questions, how it's going to go procedurally is to go back to the substitute motion, see if there's a second for that. If there is, we have to vote on it. And then the motion that you made and I seconded would be, take a second position on that. Gary?
So to be clear, compared to last year, we've got a new fire engine now, right? That we didn't have before. And we're asking for 6 positions for that fire truck that we didn't have before, right?
That's correct.
We have 6 positions.
And the point of contention is the next 3.
Okay. So the question is whether we want 3 extra.
Well, the question is, do you want to go there now while the budget is in the situation it is in, or do you want to wait until a better situation? And I think those are the two. Am I saying that right, Steve?
Yeah, and my position is to fully fund it. I fully agree with Mr. Ortiz, and looking at that chart that had in 3 years, when the SAFER grant is gone, it's going to cost us $2.2 million a year for that engine. I fully understand there's a different decision in maybe 1, maybe 2 years. I fully understand that, and we don't know where we'll be in 2 years, but today, that's my opinion.
Anybody else need more clarification or more discussion? Because we're, at this point, we have a,
I'll second Steve's motion.
okay, so we have a substitute motion on the table. It has been seconded. We're going to vote on that. And so just to be clear, what everybody's voting for, this is to approve A and C of the recommendation and to reject item B. Am I correct? All right. Motion on the table. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. All opposed? Opposed. Now we go to the motion that Michelle made. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There we go.
Motion carries by a 4-1 vote with Councilmember Gogol voting no.
All right.
Very much.
So I will also now make a motion for number 2, acting as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, adopt resolution titled, "A Resolution of the El Cajon Housing Authority Adopting the Fiscal Year 2026 to 2027 Budget." Do I have a second?
I second you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
I also make a motion acting as successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors, adopt resolution titled, "Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Cajon as the successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, adopting the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget." Do I have a second?
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Is that it? That's it, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out where I am now. Yeah. Okay, we have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 10 is for the compensation for executive and unrepresented employees. The city attorney and city manager, deputy city manager Marisol Thorne will introduce the item. Hey, Marisol.
Hi, good afternoon. I am here to go over the recommendations to the amendment to City Council Policy 829, which is the policy that administers the salaries and benefits for our unrepresented groups. So that includes confidential employees, unrepresented staff, management, and executive team members. As we approved for our municipal employees, we are recommending a 2.5% general increase for all except for the police chief. Police chief, in line with his association group, is a 4.5% increase, and then a $150 a month increase for cafeteria. And that is all we are recommending this year, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Questions? No, thanks. I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
Do we have any street cards on the sign?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay. So this is new. Do I need to read this introduction now? Yeah, okay. State law requires that I read this. First, I need to state that California law requires that prior to taking final action on the salaries, salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of what are known as local agency executives, the legislative body shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for such final action. A local agency executive includes any employee of the city who is not subject to the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, who is the city manager, the assistant city manager, a department head, or whose position is held by an employment contract, which includes the city attorney. So, for the purposes of disclosure, this report includes action on salaries and compensation in the form of fringe benefits for the following local agency executives: city manager, city attorney, assistant city manager, deputy city manager, city clerk, director of development services, director of finance, city treasurer, director of information technology, director of parks and recreation, director of public works, and police chief. First, with the exception of the police chief, it is proposed that each of these employees receive a cost of living increase of 2.5%. For police chief, a cost of living increase of 4.5%, in line with the police management group. These increases are effective June 20th, 2026. Second, it is also proposed that each of these employees receive a monthly cafeteria allotment of $1,850, an increase of $150 each month, beginning in January of 2027. This concludes the summary of proposed changes to salaries and compensation in the form of fringe benefits to the city's executives, as is required by law. Now, before we move along, is there a report from the city manager on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to reiterate, these are the same terms that we provided to the MEA and the MPEG groups that we just, council approved earlier to this evening. So other than that, no changes, but staff's here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Grant. Next, I'd like to ask our city council if you have any discussion before we ask for comments from the public. No. All right, Angela, do you have any speaker cards on this matter?
No speaker cards.
All right. Council members, any further discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the City Council Policy 829 as described below, and adopt a resolution approving the amendments to the employment contract for the city attorney and city manager, and all to execute those amendments.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Item 11 is information about public meetings and the adoption of a technology disruption policy. I'll ask the staff to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Today's report provides information about Senate Bill 707 requirements for open meetings and remote public participation as updates to the Brown Act. The city started preparing to comply with these requirements by performing upgrades to the chamber as presented in a report by the IT director on January 13th of this year. At the time, Ms. Diaz shared the need for technology for remote public comments by way of a two-way telephonic participation and the need for a policy for disruptions of telephonic or internet service interruptions. This report is to present a draft policy and resolution which must be adopted by July 1st of 2026 regarding disruption of the two-way remote attendance and the efforts that will be made to restore the service. The proposed policy states that once the presiding officer or staff become aware of a disruption that prevents members of the public from attending or participating the meeting, we will announce the disruption to the public. The mayor would call a recess of the open session. If there are closed items on the agenda, the mayor may convene the legislative body into closed session. During the closed session, staff would begin efforts to diagnose and restore the disruptive service. If there are no closed session items on the agenda, the meeting shall remain in recess for at least an hour or until the service is restored, whichever is sooner. At this point, if service has not been restored, the meeting may be moved to our backup meeting location. In our case, it would be the police station community room, and that's where we would also offer remote access, but only if the meeting room is available to us that day. After the 1 hour waiting period, if no backup room is available and the service has not been restored, the City Council may reconvene the meeting to adjourn the meeting and continue it at a later date, or if the City Council make findings that a good faith effort was made to restore the service in accordance with the adopted policy, and that resuming the meeting serves the public interest more than delaying it further, the meeting may continue without remote public attendance. It should be noted that these requirements only apply to the City Council, not to any of our other boards or commissions. That means that the Planning Commission will continue to only accept public comments at their meetings. With that, staff recommends that the City Council accepts the report and adopts the proposed technology disruption policy as presented.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate that.
staff, of course, is available for any questions.
Okay. Council, you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, very quick. Given that people can attend telephonically, do we have to make a decision with regard to how long public comment is moving forward, or can that be adjusted based off of the number of people that are going to be submitted for public comment?
Right, it can be adjusted per meeting based on how many items are on the agenda, how many public speakers are present, et cetera. So I don't think the council has to make a decision now about how much public comment is
Great.
going to be, and it can be reduced, kind of like we do now,
Great.
based on the meeting.
I just want to make sure that the legislation didn't pigeonhole us into making a decision now. Thank you.
Okay, any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right, bring it back to the council. Yeah, just. make a
Well,
motion to
I
accept.
make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the technology disruption policy.
Second.
All right, moving second, please vote. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We are skipping number 12, if I remember correctly. There are no commission reports on today's agenda. Item 13 is my activities report, which is as reported. Your activity reports of Mr. Goebel.
As reported with the action at MTS last week, we adopted a budget, but it includes a new program to freeze fares for people who are on CalWorks, Medi-Cal, or CalFresh. And that number is not known yet, but that will be frozen fares in anticipation of Sandag's Transportation Committee approving the fare increase from $2.50 to $3 for a single ride, or from $72 to $85 for a monthly pass.
Mr. Kendrick?
As reported.
Mr. Ortiz?
As reported.
Ms. Mitchell?
As reported.
There are no joint council member reports, no general information items, no first readings of ordinances, and no other closed sessions on today's agenda. And so this brings us to adjournment, the adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 23rd day of June 2026, is adjourned till Tuesday, July 14th, 2026 at 3:00 p.m. Thank you very much.